Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to another Sunday night live stream right here on ON Texas Football. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod, baby. Sorry, I'm shining like that. All right, just trying to wait for the sun to go
Shine's
down.
always on you, Rod.
I said I'm not doing it intentionally, guys. I promise you. But thank you guys for joining us. That's the estimable Jerry Hamilton, my man CJ Vogel, lifetime Longhorn CJ Vogel, joining us as well. So we got a great crew for you. Thank you guys for joining us. Really appreciate it. I know y'all are excited. I'm excited. How can you not be excited? Because we got football to talk about, some scrimmage. We can still go over some of these scrimmage news, notes, and nuggets from over the weekend. Hell, there is some Longhorns that were in action in preseason. We're going to talk about some of that going on as well. I know some of y'all are excited. Watch Jordan Whittington versus the Cowboys. That was pretty fun to watch. I got some of that DVR ready to go, so I'm going to watch it after. But a lot of football to discuss. Glad you guys could join us. Yes, from everywhere. Orange, Texas, wherever you guys are from around the world. We appreciate you guys joining us today. Mostly the show will just be Q&A. I got a couple of topics we can bring up, but I mean, you guys are going to drive the show today because there's just so much football to discuss. We want to make sure we hit all the topics that are important to you. So throw out your questions. You know how it works. Super chat. Hey, there you go. Hey, 32 Jalopy. I know Jay Witt showed out, man. I'm happy for Jay Witt. Matter of fact, I got a little Jay Witt nugget for you later on the show that I'll share.
I love it.
Yeah, but you guys know how it works, right? Super chats, jump to the front of the line. You can interrupt the show at any time, and then we'll make sure we prioritize that. But throw out your questions, guys. We'll answer as many of your questions as we can. We'll kind of start off with kind of the major themes from the scrimmage. Now that you guys have had time to process everything, you guys were getting in reports fast and furious. It was a great job, by the way, both you guys. I watched a lot of the practice reports from over the weekend. If you haven't watched any of that stuff, guys, go back and check it out. A lot of meat, a lot of great stuff from Jerry and CJ and the crew, Bobby Burton as well. But let's start. I'll start with you, Jerry. Just now you have time to process the scrimmage. All of the reports are in, and all of your sources have given you great info. What to you, major theme coming out of that first scrimmage for Texas?
I think always number one is, unless something comes out that we don't know about or anybody knows about at this point, no major injuries, right? Yep. So you go through the first scrimmage. Mo Blackwell got dinged up on a run-fit collision with Christian Clark, but we've heard about no major injuries, and that's always good news through the first scrimmage, right? Two, I think, look, Rod, Anthony Hill had a whale of a day from what I heard, and would have had 2 sacks. Had a big hit on Jarrett Gibson on a playing the run. Was all over the field. He was the guy, I guess, closest chasing Trey Wisner on the 35-yard screen that Wisner had. So Anthony Hill all over the place. And then I think, look, the other thing is, and it came from somebody that told Bobby this, Texas quarterbacks are really good. They looked really good. And I think it's what's interesting about it is people see interceptions, right? They may say everybody threw an interception. Well, that doesn't mean the wide receiver ran the right route.
Yep.
Right. That doesn't mean it wasn't a great play by Andrew Makuba picking off somebody in the end zone, right? DBs make good plays sometimes, right, Rod?
They do.
But I think that the overwhelming thing was Texas quarterback room is in a really good spot. No major injuries. And then, Rod, what we're going to let you talk about in a second is Texas breaking out this NASCAR package that had Colin Simmons at Sam backer with Anthony Hill and Mo Blackwell, and then Burke and Trey Moore at the edges. I know you're ready to talk about that. So what do you got, CJ?
Yeah, I mean, no injuries is huge, right? We've seen the news with CJ Baxter previously this week. We just saw what happened out of College Station earlier today as well with Ruben Owens. Very unfortunate, part of the game, unfortunately. But, for Texas to move forward in the fall and remain healthy, all important moving forward. Big takeaway for me is plays on both sides of the ball, right? Some of the big-time plays, we heard about the Silas Bolden catch, where he's basically parallel with the turf, diving, trying to put his body out there on the line. Ryan Wingo had a great reception that Jerry reported, near the sideline, fully extended, pulling the ball in 100%, right? That's great to hear. Defensively, the interceptions were big. Jahdae Barron had a forced fumble on the 1-yard line playing at cornerback, right? So you're hearing bits and pieces about both sides having success, which is what I would say very important at this aspect, right? You don't want to hear one side is completely dominating, but both sides are both having, successes in their own way. That to me was one of the big takeaways that I had. And the other thing is those big names that we continue to hear about dating back to the spring are showing up again, right? It's Anthony Hill, it's Silas Bolden, it's Ryan Wingo. It's those guys that we've continued to hear about in practice and workouts and conditioning. They're standing out when it's, pad to pad, helmet to helmet now. That's important moving forward for me.
I loved a lot of the reports, and I think my favorite, we'll get to that NASCAR package. That's also one of my favorites. I told you guys they're going to have a NASCAR package. How could they not with that kind of talent on the field? But the havoc plays on defense. This is something. Texas defense much improved last season and were elite against the run. They were great situations, especially on third down, one of the best teams in the country. But they were still missing a lot of those splash plays, right? Those havoc plays on defense. Wanted more forced fumbles. They wanted more of those, sacks, negative plays, tackles for loss behind the scrimmage. And it seems like that's what I heard a lot of. Like, whether you're talking about Anthony Hill, whether you're talking about Jahdae Barron, and whether you're talking about the interceptions by Makuba and company, it seems like, Jelani McDonald, I heard he got an interception, but they're getting more of those havoc plays. By the way, they got a lot of interceptions last year. They're actually one of I think they were one of the top teams in the country, actually, if you go look at overall and interceptions. So they made more plays on the ball there. But I've heard Sark talk about punching the ball a lot more, wanting to force more fumbles, and to think they did that in critical situations. Because from what I hear, Jerry, that was like goal line. Now, that on the other side of that, right? You got something to correct. If you're Sark, that's something that's an issue you have to remedy. But for Texas to come up clutch in those situations, making those kind of plays, going through football, that's what I like. A lot of havoc-minded players now. Anthony Hill, Trey Moore, guys I'm hearing about. Jahdae Barron, of course, he's always been one of those types of guys. But Makuba now being one of those types of guys adding to the mix. I think Colin Simmons is going to be one of those types of players as well. Ethan Burke was a good havoc player for you last year. Making a lot of havoc plays. And what I mean by havoc plays, and CJ knows, is they call it havoc rates. These are basically splash plays by the defense. Interceptions, PBUs, tackles for loss, forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, sacks. Those are known as your havoc plays. And you want players that make a lot of those types of plays on your defense. And I think they got more of those types of players on the defense now. No doubt about
it. They do. And you look at, I think all that starts with pass rush, though, right?
Yeah.
If you don't create pass rush, it's hard to create havoc unless some guys just have bad days, right? So the thing I like is that Texas wasn't – yesterday's scrimmage, they didn't complete a lot of balls down the field. To me, from what we hear, the Texas pressure, it's Colin Simmons, it's Trey Moore and those guys, Ethan Burke a year older, Anthony Hill a year older. Texas has more guys, Rod, that can rush the passer than they've had probably since 2009. I mean, realistically. I mean, they have a chance. And I call them 10-sack talents. I said where Bobby and I were doing a video earlier this morning. Colin Simmons, Trey Moore, that doesn't mean they're going to get 10 sacks, but they have that ability, right? Yep. They have that ability. What does Ethan Burke look like in year 3? What does Anthony Hill look like in year 2? Mo Blackwell can actually get after the quarterback a little bit as well. Barron Sorrell, very solid player. Mm-hmm. Alfred Collins from an interior. I think Texas has more pass rushers to create that havoc this season. And it's going to be interesting how Johnny Nansen, what he brings and kind of helps that happen.
Yeah. The question I have about this group and that pass rush, right? It's going to be great coming from the edges, but what helped make Texas so tough as a defense was in 2023, it came from the interior, right? Alfred Collins is a guy we know that has like great athleticism who can get after the quarterback there, Jerry. Who's next? Who's going to go in that interior and create issues there? I think Jermaine Lollet is a guy that has that ability. He's shown it in the past. I think he has a 6-sack season and previously, maybe before a couple injuries. So we'll see again what kind of pitch count he's on to begin the season. We reported earlier that Texas doesn't want to throw him out into the fire right away early on in this fall camp. But who else are your guys in the interior that can create some disruption in the passing game? Because, again, it's one thing to have it on the edges. It's one thing to have it just on the interior. If you can combine the two, then you're really working with some grease right there, right? I think that's the thing. So.
You ain't cooking. You're cooking with grease, man. You're cooking with some fish grease. Yeah, no doubt. No, I'll say this, and the NASCAR package. By the way, I told you guys they was gonna have one. It only makes sense if you're gonna stockpile pass rushers to have a NASCAR package. So, Jerry, do we know who was reported or rumored to be in the NASCAR package? Do
Yeah.
you know that exactly?
Yeah. So yesterday it was Anthony Hill, Blackwell, Colin Simmons at Sam Backer, Ethan Murphy, Trey Moore at edges. But now in the spring, Trey Moore played some Sam Backer too. So I think him and Colin may be interchangeable.
I gotcha. Yeah.
But maybe you want the more experienced player playing off the actually playing off the edge. I don't know. But those were the 5 names that we were thrown out as key pieces.
Okay. Yeah. And I guess in the side, you make sure you have Collins in there because he's probably your best interior pass rusher, the D tackle. But I love the NASCAR package. The NASCAR package is Texas trying to find an answer to it's hard to even call them collapses, but Texas giving up leads late in games last season. Because they didn't collapse because they found a way to win those games in clutch time. But they would get up, as we know, 2-3 scores, sometimes 20, 21 points on the team, and then they would be holding on for dear life. And in that situation, ultimately you think, hey, and by the way, we already know how that happened, right? They couldn't run the ball against Texas because Texas' run defense was way too stout. So these teams would abandon the run game and be one-dimensional, and yet would be able to get back into the game against Texas as a one-dimensional offense. And if you're going to be one-dimensional as a defensive coordinator, you got to find a way to counter that. And I think this is their counter. We get up. Now, I ain't saying you're going to get up in the SEC on teams like that, but if you do, and you're up early in the game by 3 scores, 20, 21 points, I think this package can keep you from just kind of hanging on for dear life and surviving. And instead, you can actually put your foot on the throat and you can put these teams out of their misery. And I think that's what the NASCAR package is more about. That's when you're going to see it. Now, if Texas doesn't get up big in games, I don't know if you're going to see it a lot.
That's the thing, right?
Unless you go against a pass-happy team. And how many pass-happy teams are they going to see next year?
Not as many.
Yes, it's not the big. It's like one. Colorado State's one.
Yeah.
Mississippi State will be one.
Mississippi State's one. Thank you. That's another good CJ. But it's not as many as you would face usually in the Big 12. And even the Big 12 guys, hell, K-State wasn't a pass-happy team. That was the most run-heavy team, arguably, in the country when they faced Texas. And Texas forced them to abandon the run game. That's how good they were. And they still got back into that game with Texas just throwing the football. So that's what the NASCAR package is going to safeguard against, I think. And something else I heard Bobby talking about this with you, Jerry, that there was an influence, Johnny Nanson's influence, maybe something you can already observe early on.
Yeah.
I told you guys, Johnny Nanson in Arizona played more single high post safety. That's your cover 3s, your cover 1s, than probably anybody in the Power 5, anybody in the country. You're talking about upwards of 70, 75% of the time. And Texas, usually they're pretty balanced. They're a match quarters team. That's cover 4, but you ended up matching, playing man-to-man toward the end of it. So it's a man zone concept. And that's usually their bread and butter coverage. That's one of the relics from the Gary Patterson days, Gary Patterson's influence on PK. But the Nanson influence, and I noticed this in the spring game too, a lot more single highs. And I think that's going to help, because you brought up, CJ, about the interior, right? How do you account for the lack of those war daddies in the interior of big Byron Murphy, who also looked great this past weekend's preseason, and Tavondre Sweat? Well, the run defense, I'm a little worried about. I think pass defense is what you're worried about, like how they're going to get that pressure from the interior. I'm a little worried about how they're going to be so stout against the run in the interior. I think another way is bring down another defender into the box. That's what the single high post safety allows you to do. I think that's their plan for the run heavy teams they're going to face in the SEC. We'll just have more guys in the box because we believe we can hold up in coverage on the outside now.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, another thing that happened, Rod, in the red zone that I thought was interesting was they played Jalen Gilbo and Jahdae Barron at the same time on the field. Jahdae played from corner at one point in time. They also, from what I was told, had 2 nickels in the game. And actually took a D lineman off the field.
Ooh, that sounds like Nanson to me. That sounds like Nanson to me.
I knew that was right up your alley with Nanson.
Yeah, that sounds like exotic, creative stuff. I kind of like it. Depends on the matchup, right? Who you're playing that week, and what they like to do in the red zone.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
they did that a little bit a year ago, right? Against Kansas State in that game, whenever they were having to throw the football to get back into it, they couldn't necessarily rely on the run. In that overtime period in the red zone, it was Jahdae Barron on the field at, I believe, the field cornerback spot. They had a switch route to the boundary, and it was Jahdae Barron who was there, banjoing, tangoing, whatever you want to call it, with the nickel at the time to make sure that on those rub routes and those switch releases, there was good communication and it thwarted whatever the play call was from Kansas State that was directed to go that way. So I do think that's, if you're trying to find your best 5 cornerbacks or defensive backs to be on the field together, it will be Jahdae Barron and Jalen Gilbo who are in that conversation. And Rod, we've talked about it. How important is it to have your guys on the field that you want, whether it be situationally or in the red zone, to have both of those on the field together? I mean, that's your highest intelligence, communication guys that you have on the roster at the moment.
That's a good point.
To that point, I think we'll see this year, Rod, you said something earlier about the NASCAR and in the red zone. It's all going to be matchups dependent. Like if Texas is facing a team that has 2 really speedy, fast, quick guys that can get vertical at wide receiver, you probably aren't going to see Jahdae Barron playing as much corner because that's probably not going to be his strength. That's going to be more Gavin Holmes and Manny Muhammad. I think it's all going to be a lot of what we see this year is matchup dependent, but that's why I'm excited. I want to see what Johnny Nansen brings to this in how it changes based on who you play and it not looking the same to the naked eye all the time.
Yep, no doubt, because we're gonna have a lot of fun on some post games then, and reflecting on different game plans. Because you're right, that's what Nansen did as well as any defensive coordinator in the country when he was at Arizona. Week to week, the opposing offensive coordinator had no idea how the Johnny Nansen Arizona defense is going to look. A couple of examples. I mean, he broke out the Nansen used a joker package featuring 5 down linemen versus San Diego State. He did that 2 years ago in 2022. He used a dollar package versus USC and Washington with 3 down linemen, 7 DBs. I saw him use a 3 high safety package actually versus Oregon State. He used a 3-4. They were a 4-2-5, and they used a 3 high safety hybrid package. They used dime defense. I mean, there wasn't really a defense that some type of concept on defense that Johnny Nansen did not utilize. Double eagle flex, you name it. Johnny Nansen threw it out there at opponent.
I'm just imagining that defensive group walking into the film room on Sunday or Monday to prepare for the next opponent, and everything that they knew, that playbook the week before just being thrown out, and they're just, what are we learning this week, guys? That's a crazy amount of knowledge and formations and schemes that you got to know on a week to week. Also says a lot about, you're one leader, your play caller on the defensive side of the ball, which will now be the helmet communicator. We'll see. Again, we believe that's going to be Anthony Hill. Jalen Gilbo will be in that conversation. Derek Williams. So it'll be interesting how much more Texas is showing to be versatile this year throughout, because that, Rod, again, Jerry, you pointed this out as well. That will be kind of the influence that we see this year from Johnny Nansen. And I'm hoping to see some more creativity from the linebacking spot in terms of when they get after the quarterback, what kind of twist stunts they provide as well. Because, again, I've brought it up several times. Jacob Manu is only about 5'11", and he was a star linebacker for Arizona a year ago with 6.5 sacks. If that's a guy that you could look at and say, all right, I could use a David Binda or Anthony Hill in that kind of role, with those edges, okay. There's your pressure up the middle if you're desperately needing it.
That's a great point, too. No, it's good stuff there. All right, I know we got some super chats with those here in just a second, momentarily. But first, we got to thank our good friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery for sponsoring the Sunday night live stream. Love me some Flat Creek Estate. So does my wife. She's a big fan as well. Did you know the most awarded wine in Texas is actually the vineyard closest to Austin, Texas? That's right, folks. Flat Creek Estate Winery is just minutes from downtown Austin, and they've won award after award this year for their vintage wine, Super Texan. Super Texan is now available at your local Specs. I know it's also available at Central Market because my wife does some shopping there and she found it. She was really excited because she's a big fan of the Super Texan, but also a Flat Creek wine. They have great wine, folks, whether you're talking about the Pinot Grigio, even their rosé is great, especially when it's hot outside, really refreshing. Go check out their inventory for yourself at flatcreekestate.com. Of course, Flat Creek is also a gorgeous venue with barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend, perfect for a day date with your significant other or a weekend getaway with your significant other. So you can make plans today. Go to flatcreekestate.com. That's Flat Creek Estate Winery. Thank you very much for sponsoring the Sunday night live stream. All right, let's get right to it. Got some super chats here to jump into. It's Lep. Thank you very much. It's Lep. We appreciate the kindness here. Says Aggies upset that y'all reported the Owens injury first. We got y'all's back. Best in the business, hoping for a speedy recovery from Owens. Yeah, I saw some of this. What's the scuttlebutt here, Jerry? What's the scuttlebutt now?
I don't know. I mean, look, we covered, there's people that covered his recruitment. We kind of, we have some ties, and you feel bad for the kid, man. I mean, anytime you have these season ending type of injuries, it's just brutal. We obviously wish Ruben the very best, man. A really good player. It's interesting that him and Baxter, man, early in the season, both are now done for the season, obviously. And it's just crazy. It's right before they make their big jumps from freshman to sophomore season. Now both lost those sophomore seasons due to injury. Been a few injuries, pretty impactful injuries in college football already this year. Notre Dame's left tackle lost for the year. Arkansas would have been their starting Nebraska would have been their starting left tackle, lost for the year. Tennessee lost their their nickel for the season. So there's been some impactful injuries thus far, and two of them have hit the Lone Star State with now Cedric Baxter was running back one. Ruben Owens, I'm not sure if he's technically running back one for A&M, but they have three really good backs. He was one of them.
Yeah, 700 yards a year ago as a true freshman, right? That's a guy that was a big part of that offense, and with Colin Klein, and we've talked about what he was able to do at Kansas State, being the guy wanting to run the football, expected to be another vital piece again this year for A&M. So again, very unfortunate. Anyone who was able to watch Ruben at El Campo, and even a year ago at A&M, he's a heck of a football player, right? Texas fans had plenty of roller coaster emotions with his recruitment as well. So again, it's unfortunate. The two top running backs in that 2023 recruiting class now will be out for the entire season, and more close to home when that game comes around late November. It'll have to be a few more guys in each room there at the running back spot that will be making the plays there. So again, wishing the speediest of recoveries to Ruben and CJ Baxter moving forward.
And also, Oklahoma lost one of their top 5 receivers in the rotation. Hookham Baby pointed that out. I think you live in Edmond, Oklahoma, but they lost the kid from Winter Garden, Florida, 6'5", 200-pounder, who had 5 touchdown catches, averaged 25 a catch last year. So Oklahoma got hit with one of their top 5 receivers in the rotation as well. I believe that was a knee injury, non-contact. So there's been a few impactful injuries thus far, and that's why I kind of led off with got through the scrimmage without a major injury, right? So anytime you get through a scrimmage without a major injury, that's a good thing, especially scrimmage one, when these guys haven't really hit on that level in that setting since the spring game.
Yeah, man, really unfortunate injuries like that early on. Thank you guys. Thank you for the super chat and stuff. We appreciate that. V Brown, another super chat here. Thank you very much, V Brown. Very kind of you. Says that, Rod, who are the coverage specialists on this roster from the one that you saw? I think Malik Muhammad goes without saying. I think he's probably your best coverage specialist on the team, period. Then from there on, I mean, I think Gavin Holmes may be a little bit underrated from what I'm hearing, that he's looking really good. He's taking the lead. Gavin Holmes can run a little bit. Yeah. Derek Williams, I think, as a safety, is just a natural cover guy. I think he has great coverage skills as well. There's some other things he's got to add to his resume as a safety, become an alley cat, angles to the football, things of that nature. But I think that guy can just straight up cover. Jahdae Barron can cover. He doesn't have the top end speed, so as Jerry mentioned, if he's going against a speedster, there's a kind of that kind of different technique he probably needs to utilize there against certain types of receivers, just because he's got some limitations there. But in terms of his instincts and his fundamentals, I think Jahdae Barron's one of your best cover guys. There's no question about that. And Jalen Gilmore obviously is underrated as a coverage guy. Otherwise, he wouldn't be getting the first team reps that he's getting. So I think right there's probably your top 5 guys. I love Javion Cole too, in terms of his off coverage. I've talked about that too. He's a really good off coverage corner. And so I like that about his game. I would like to see how he does versus press. I think your best press coverage current is also Malik Muhammad. So he's the guy. If anybody is close to being, I ain't gonna tell him a shutdown corner because I don't even know if those exist really anymore. But if you want a guy that you don't necessarily have to help, if you don't have to allocate resources to give him a lot of support, he would be the guy that you can trust and say, all right, he'll hold up. He'll hold up in coverage. He's going to challenge all those throws. He's going to make it really, really tough on quarterbacks with really tight windows to throw the football to. And I love Malik Muhammad's technique, man. He's just such a natural cover quarterback.
Hey, Rod, talk about this. So one of the things that I was told was in red zone. Okay, I think the first two safeties out may have been Taft McCuba, right? And then they rotated Derek Williams with the ones, Jelani McDonald with the ones as well. In the red zone, Derek Williams got a lot of 1 reps. Does that kind of go to your thinking and your point on him in coverage?
That would make sense because they probably want to go straight up man in the red zone. That's the easiest thing to do in the red zone. Everything happens quick. So the closer you are in the red zone, especially the closer you are to the end zone, most teams just locking up playing man coverage. That's why those rub routes, pick routes, switch routes work really well down there in the red zone. And I forgot about Makuba. I don't know if I mentioned Makuba or not, but Makuba is a really consistent coverage guy safety. And he can play. He can come down and roll down and play nickel if you need him to too. So that's probably your best 6. And I can see them in the red zone, maybe having a special coverage unit in the red zone where it's like, all right, you got Gilbo out there, and we got Barron, we got Malik Muhammad, we got Gavin Owens, but at safety, we got Derek Williams, who's a coverage safety for us, and Makuba, who's a coverage guy. And like Coach Akina used to do back in the day, we can just match up and play man-to-man because our safeties actually can lock down and cover the slots if they need to. So I think that wouldn't be a bad idea. You can tell the coaches are experimenting with different things this offseason that compared to other offseasons. And it probably because they have the versatility to do it, number one, and they got some experience back there. They trust these guys now. They know the system well enough that we can move them around. They should have a little muscle memory and familiarity when it comes to the system.
On top of that, and I know it's not a tangible thing, but the IQ of those guys is very high, right? Makuba's played 3 years. He's played at nickel. I look at nickel cornerbacks, Rod, and you could speak on this if you want here in a bit, but those guys have to be quick and they have to be instinctual, right? They have to understand concepts. They have to understand what's coming at them because they are basically linebackers, whenever they line up where they do. For Texas to have Jahdae Barron and Jalen Gilbo to each have experience there. Makuba's had experience there. He's had a lot of time on the field as well. And Manny Muhammad, who we've talked about, has been basically a cornerback specialist since his 7th grade season at South Oak Cliff, right? He's seen almost everything at that spot in his playing days. So for that group right there to be some of those more intelligent guys on the field, really important in the red zone as well. Good point.
That was Sark was big on that 2 years ago. After 2021, he was talking about football IQ. He hasn't talked about that a lot. You notice that was like one of his talking points in the offseason.
He feels better about it.
I don't think he thinks it's a concern anymore. He's like, no, I got.
By the way, if he starts talking about football IQ again, that means they missed in their evaluations, and that's not what you want to be talking about.
That's true. No, if you go market, Sark has a different emphasis every offseason. This offseason has been versatility. There's no doubt. Versatility is when you're talking about recruiting, or whether you're talking about in just development, cross-training guys. They want to be versatile. And that's one of the focus. It seems like that's an emphasis and been a focus for him this offseason. I remember when football IQ was something he talked a lot about. If you listen to Sark and you listen to enough of interviews, you'll listen to themes. There'll become some consistent themes that develop. And that was definitely one of them this offseason was versatility. And there's no doubt. Look at the defense. Versatility. Defensive front. Edge room. Versatility. Yeah. Linebacking core. Versatile. DBs. Versatile. Wide receivers. Versatile. Tight ends are pretty versatile. They got a lot of versatility on this damn team. I will give them credit for that. All right, getting back to it. Thank you guys for the super chat. Let's get to it here. Oh, Craig wants to know. I'm sure UT Boy wants to know too. How is Jonte Cook doing? Any Jonte Cook notes from the scrimmage, gentlemen? Did you get anything there?
I mean, nothing like a bunch of splash plays, right? I think he's just solid. He's been solid in this camp. And I think him and DeAndre Moore, somebody actually told me maybe DeAndre Moore may be the best grasp route runner of Sark's offense right now. Him and Jonte Cook go into the fall as the two guys that should be. They're the guys that have been here a year of the top 6 guys. Then you have Ryan Niblett, right, as well. But Jonte's been solid. I mean, I think that's kind of the main thing. And I think that's the best news for Jonte is if you just continue to he's solid. He's been solid. Yep. He's been solid. Because most guys that have expectations, if you start hearing things about them, sometimes it's not good. Drop here, drop there, missed route here, missed route there, fumble in the open space. So I think the more you just hear consistently solid, the better news that is for Jonte. DeAndre's been tremendous in route running this fall.
He had 3 or 4 catches during the scrimmage too. So, I mean, again, to Jerry's point, very even keel when it comes to Jonte. That production is there. A source I talked to after the scrimmage said they just want to see a little bit more, right? You hear about some of those splash plays with the ball in his hands. We know Jonte's very talented. Go show it a little bit more and get those kind of splashy plays, those headliners that we talk about as those key plays. That's the next step here for Jonte. But again, if you're able to haul in passes that are intended for you, that's what you want. Those are the guys that you want to have on the field.
Because, I mean, look, not everybody's going to be the splash play guy. Silas Bolden's a splash play guy. Ryan Wingo is a splash play guy. I think Isaiah Bond may be, because of his speed, maybe kind of that splash play guy. Obviously, he was at Alabama. And then I think you have the guys who are just – their game is going to be modeled on consistency. DeAndre Moore, Matthew Golden, Jonte Cook. I think there's a difference between these 6 guys, and it speaks to versatility, right? I think the big thing that I've heard from a wide receiver standpoint while we're on the subject is we just got to always remember how difficult Sark's offense is to grasp and how much he puts on the plate of these wide receivers. Rod, you talk about how many unique routes A.D. Mitchell ran last year.
37.
So, I mean, the chances are Golden, Bond, and Bolden, your 3 newcomers, all of those guys won't be able to take on all of that, right? I mean, so we'll see, and that may have – I just wonder what we'll see early in the season from the offense versus late in the season from the offense with Sark. Are these guys where they need to be in terms of Sark and Quinn absolutely trust these guys within the system to make the same reads that they are?
Yep. No, that's good stuff. All right. Good conversation. Speaking of wide receivers, here's a recruiting question a little bit. Shook One says, Jerry, gut feeling, number of wide receivers signed this class?
I think it'll be 3 minimum, maybe 4. I think that's where it's been headed, 3 or 4. Look, I mean, see what happens with Jamie French, August 30th, man. We've been talking about August 30th for a couple of months now, and here we are on August 11th. It's Texas, Miami battling that out for Jamie French. If Jamie French were to go Texas way, your third guy is going to be a speed wide receiver. And then we'll see what they do. If there's a best available, somebody that pops up, decommits, you change of heart, coaching carousel, you just never know. But that I think they want mold of, you got Lockett, you would like Jamie French in the class, then you want to go and get that speed receiver as your third receiver and see what happens with other guys.
All right. Thanks for the question there. Appreciate it. Getting back to it here. This comes from Football Junkie. Football Junkie here says, any Sorrell or Burke news, guys?
It's still running with that first group off the edges, right? Trey Moore's finding a spot there as well. You see Baron Sorrell alongside him, opposite of him pretty often. Burke has often been used as an early down guy, right? He's 6'7", 270 pounds, 65 pounds, whatever he is, more of that bigger body that you can play the run with a little bit more consistently, I would say at this point. So he'll be a guy that you see often against the Michigan, a Georgia, Kentucky, and A&M. Can still get after the quarterback quite a bit as well. So, again, great versatility in that edge room. We'll see, what that group looks like moving forward, but what the pieces are at that spot. I didn't hear a whole lot about the 2 during the scrimmage, but Sorrell was a guy that I did hear in the week leading up to the scrimmage, having some really, often success against those Texas tackles, which, again, have been giving each other, some really good battles in spring or in fall camp so far. Really encouraging when you consider what's the talent on the offensive side of the ball going up against that first group on the defensive side of the ball to get each other ready for the SEC play.
Yeah. A good time to mention in, UT Boy asked about Colton Vosick. Somebody else did earlier in the chat. Yeah. Colton Vosick, we've heard, has been quality again, kind of building off this spring. Texas has 6 really talented edge players. I think that's the bottom line. The 2 we just talked about, Colin Simmons, Trey Moore, Justice Finkley in his 3rd year, and then Colton Vosick. Then you have a young guy like Zena, who's got a bright future in front of him. This edge position, we talk about offensive line, what Kyle Flood and Sark have done to build that to where it has gotten. Edge position at this point is probably as impressive when you consider Lance Jackson and Robo are committed and what they have coming in behind the guys that are already here.
Valsik's also depth for that NASCAR package, right? Lengthier guy, but still has that quick twitch that you like off, that BGO, that ball get off. He's got some of that, and that really started to show late in the spring and obviously evident in the spring game as well. Still trying to work into that first, second rotation, right? That's how deep Texas is at the moment. Whenever you go, kind of position by position at the edge room, who are your first stringers per se, your second stringers and third stringers. Right now, and it changed a little bit during the scrimmage on Saturday, but that third group in practice normally is Colin Simmons and Colton Vasek. I'd say that's pretty good.
Yeah, and if they really want to, get extreme about this NASCAR package, man, I'd bump them two big edge guys inside. I'm bumping, I'll keep Alfred Collins in there, but I'm bumping either Burke or I'm bumping Vasek inside, and then I got my edges on out there. I mean, I would just make life hell on opposing offensive lines. But I love that this offensive line, because they brought back so many starters the last couple of years. So you worked against the best D tackle duo, in the country, second best in Texas football history. You got a chance to work against them, all last season. And even before that, right, it was still a really deep room with Coburn and more Ojimo added to that too. And so we talk about how iron sharpens iron in practice, right? And I remember going against Roy Williams every day in practice and thinking to myself, I'm not going to face a receiver better than this dude. I got to get as many reps against him and win as much as I can against Roy. And if I can do that, I'm going to go into the game uber confident that none of these guys are going to be able to, outplay me and get the upper hand on me. Because of their skill set, whatever it may be. Like that guy was drafted into the top 10 in the NFL draft, like we all thought. You've been going against guys like that. So your confidence is offensive line, and even now going against the edges. Now your tackles are getting tested. Kelvin Banks has been awesome. He should have had this confidence. He faced 4 first rounders his freshman year as a starter. So he's been having this confidence. But the rest of the offensive line, I mean, you've gone up, and his edge room is going to be really impressive. I mean, you're going up against some guys who are going to, like you said, Jerry, they're double-digit sack ceiling for these guys. These guys are going to play on Sunday. These are NFL edge defenders now. Texas, that's what they have. Hey, Barron Sorrell included. He transformed himself into being an NFL edge defender. I'm telling you guys, that's truly when you start taking the step as a program, is when in practice, you got to win your fair share, but you're going up against a guy that's going to play on Sundays.
Yep.
And so there's no shame in losing a couple here and there, but
that's right.
You get so much better though. So much better every day in practice. That's what's happening with this roster right now, guys. The wide receivers, the DBs, these guys don't play on Sundays now.
Look, Nick Saban recruited to that for 15 years, right? Yep. And Kirby Smart is right now. So I mean, the first time somebody interviews Bill Norton as a Longhorn, I bet if the question's asked, how much of going against those Georgia offensive linemen every day, even though you weren't playing on Saturdays, how much of that helped prepare you for your opportunity when you transferred to Arizona? I bet he would say more than I could talk about, more than I could give in an answer. I want to answer this one real quick. Some people have been asking about the D lineman from Prince Avenue in the Atlanta area that just decommitted from Georgia, Christian Garrett. Not a player Texas has been on. He made official visit to Tennessee, I think Clemson, Georgia Tech, in addition to Georgia. So we'll see if there's any chance he breaks far from home, but nothing we've heard to this point.
All right. Thank you, Jerry. Yeah, keep throwing out recruiting questions you got for the guys. We'll answer those as well. Tom brings up a good question here. Good point. And something I've talked about. CJ, you and I have talked about this. Tom says, Tom Bregman, now I'm wondering, is Texas working on goal line drives and third down conversions? Obviously, goal line being part of their red zone issues from last season, and they were 120th in touchdown percentage in the red zone. So I'm sure Sark has been obsessed. That's just kind of his word for with red zone offense. Matter of fact, he admitted that he visited some training camps like he does, I think, every offseason. But I would be curious to find out what training camps he visited, because something tells me Miami's on that list, and I'm hoping it is, because they're one of the better red zone offenses in the NFL. And so is the 49ers and Channel, one of the better red zone offenses. I'm hoping he was going to the NFL looking at red zone offense and the best red zone. So I think you'll have some remedy to your red zone issues. Goal line is different though, because you lost a lot of your jumbo package from last year. That was Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat in there. You don't have the red cat anymore, Savion Red. CJ Baxter was your power back, Not saying Jaden Blue can't run in between the tackles because I know he can. But I'm just saying about that you've lost your power back. So goal line guys, red zone and goal line, yes, they obviously correlate, but you can make the argument that they're two different offenses and two different packages altogether you have to have in there. So what are your thoughts on goal line? And I'll throw out third downs. This is where the ceiling for Texas offense, even though Sark has done a great job with the offense, the ceiling is so much higher. We just talked about touchdown percentage in the red zone last year for Texas, 120th in the country. Do you realize Texas has not been the elite third down team since Sark has been here? They're not. They're right. CJ, they've been 70th last year.
We don't hear about that too often, Rod, but it not as elite as you would envision with Sark, right?
No. The highest they were in 2021, they were 30th in third down offense, but they were 73rd in 2022, 70th last season. CJ, you brought up the point that Sark oftentimes is in 4-down mindset, so third down didn't mean as much. And you're right; they were 33rd in the country in fourth down conversion percentage last year, 61%, and they were 49th in 2022 in that metric. So yeah, there is some to that Sark. I'm not really worried about it because once I pass a certain point on the field, I'm a 4-down coach anyway. But I will admit, it's a little surprising when you look at Texas third down offense. They're not very efficient or proficient at third down offense. So how can this third down offense and red zone offense, Texas is actually bad to below average, and they still were a 12-win team last year.
Made the playoff.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It would be. I don't have the number in front of me, Rod. Maybe you do, but the total of fourth downs in which Sarkisian attempted and completed, right? That was a big topic of conversation in 2022 on the defensive side of the ball in terms of that total of critical downs, third and fourth, to get off the field and to win those plays. You can look at that Texas Tech game on the road in which Texas just couldn't get off the field. Whatever it was, I think. What was it? Coach McGuire and Texas Tech went for about 7 times on fourth down. They were 6 or 7 or 5 or 7 something. When you look at that game, and it's in conclusion, thinking, man, 2 of those stops would have completely changed the outcome of that game. That's what I think helps overshadow maybe some of those, maybe that lack of success, if you will, in that third down area is the aggression. And, there's been a good bit of success on those fourth downs whenever Sarkisian says, yep, I know that we're in that 2-down territory to get the first down. Third down is going to set up what we want to do on fourth, and et cetera. So it masks a little bit of what has been a bit of a deficiency with that Texas offense. So we'll see again. And we've talked about it. When Texas does have a glaring, question mark from one year to the next, more times than not, it does get improved, right? We saw the jump with third down defense a year ago. I think red zone's kind of taken that entire conversation this year, and we'll see that jump in 2024 that's expected this year. And I was thinking about it a little bit. One of y'all brought up a great point earlier last week on the, kind of the running style of a Jarrett Gibson, Jaden Blue in the same conversation. They kind of hide below that bigger offensive line right behind the line of scrimmage. By the goal line, I know you kind of want that powerful back, that 6'2", 220 build. Hiding behind that back and using that speed or that quick burst might actually be something that Texas utilizes often, whether it be with a jet or orbit motion to kind of throw some dressing on it as well, right? We'll see, but I was thinking about that a little bit. Maybe you have something there with kind of that smaller back that can surprise folks on where he ends up or hitting the hole in one way or the other.
I got a weird prediction. It's either going to go that direction or Darian Gillette may end up being a guy.
Ooh.
After what we heard Saturday. And
Bobby
and I have heard that today as well. And we were talking earlier that Darian did very, very well in his ability, willingness to find the hole and stick his head in there and create a little power at 230. And by the way, Texas fourth down percentage last year, 27th in college football, 61.29%. That was up from 54.55% in 2022.
Yeah,
that's good stuff. Do you know where that would have ranked, Jerry?
That would rank 27th in college football last year. And that's all. That's FBS. That's everybody. Washington was 20. Texas actually wasn't that far behind. Texas Tech was 62.86, but Washington was 22nd at 63.64%. Obviously, he went for it too. But as far as Alabama was 11th, which is crazy, but they had a bunch of fourth and shorts with Milroe, right? QB run game. Oregon was 74% last year, which is interesting, and Georgia converted 75%. But again, this stat's a flat stat. Michigan 77.27. Those are fourth and very shorts with their offense. That doesn't take into account the distance on those fourth downs.
Very true. Yeah,
because Michigan's fourth downs were probably not the same as Texas fourth downs.
Yeah, you don't see the 4th and 4s and plus, right? Those they want to power football, kind of run on those 4th and 2s and 4th and inches, whatever it might be, knowing that their offensive line can get them that yard they need more so than anything else.
All right, good stuff there, guys. Getting back to the questions here. Got one here from Rick. And Rick says, Bledsoe has the athleticism, but will he earn the snaps to generate pressure from the inside? I know you guys like Jere Bledsoe. What are your thoughts?
Love him athletically, but, Sark said in the first press conference of the year when asked about defensive line and then some body followed up with the young guys, Jere Bledsoe and Mitchell. And Sark was he was just put it out there. He's pretty transparent. We're looking for consistency with Jere. And that's the key. And this should be the year. Let's just be real. Jere was an early high school graduate. Kudos to Texas on that, by the way. And then he was coming on in the spring a little bit. Then he had then he had to have the hernia surgery. So that shut him down for the spring, missed some workout time. Now he's up to 295-ish, right? And he's still a freak athlete at that size, one of the best in the program. This year 3 should be when he really should show signs of some consistency. If not, you're looking at your final year. You're really going to be consistent your final year if you haven't shown any signs of consistency to that point. Maybe, but the odds aren't in your favor at that point. So this should be a year if Jure's going to take the step that his athleticism says he could take. Yeah. Texas fans start to see that on the field.
And I think he's another guy in which you hear consistency is going to be the key for him. That's kind of been the word around Alfred Collins for years is we just got to see it down after down. We see spurts of it. Consistency is what's going to help get him into that rotation early this year.
All right, good stuff. And Rick also wants to know with guys like Moore, Collins, and even Burke, does Texas use ghost fronts? For those who don't know the ghost front, they also call them radar fronts. That's when you basically have all your guys on the line of scrimmage standing up in a 2-point stance. And they can move these guys around, moving and shifting around. I don't know if they will. I got to go back and see if Johnny Nansen used a lot of that. Johnny Nansen loved to move around his pieces. I'm not sure how many radar fronts they use. And we've seen PK use some version of. Remember they did the stack
straight line. Yeah.
Yes. They did that kind of that stack alignment. So PK's got a little funky every now and then. I would love to see him use more of it, especially when you're going against teams that are in a predictable passing situation. Basically, the same situation where you're going to have the NASCAR package deployed would be a similar situation where you can use that. Remember, Manny Diaz would do that at times. So if he would do it on early downs, be moving guys around, it's like, nah, that's not the way to do it. Not in the SEC where they're going to run right downhill on you. You need guys to be gap sound and have gap integrity. And sometimes radar fronts, ghost fronts, you can sacrifice a little gap integrity at times for that. But you're trying to confuse the blocking scheme. And, that's only really going to help you in pass protection rather than a team wants to run downhill on you. So good stuff there, Rick. All right, coming back to it. How about this one from Dante Major? Says, Rod, I know GA is loaded, but this year could be different for them too. They will have to face mostly SEC West teams versus facing the East teams. What do you guys think? This is supposed to be Kirby Smart's most talented team that he's had. That's people saying this
offensively for sure. Offensively, not defensively. Offensively,
offensively. Some people say just because of depth overall. Offensively, it's best team he's had. What are your thoughts though? Is it a different schedule now that they have to play?
Much different.
Yeah, look. So they play. Here's the thing about Georgia this year, and this is why I say if they go 12-0, you just tip your cap and move on and say you're the best team. You're playing at Bama, at Texas, at Ole Miss. You're literally playing on the road against Kalen DeBoer, Sark, and Lane Kiffin. If Georgia goes and wins all 3 of those games, you just like, man, y'all are the best team, at least heading to playoffs. So what do you just tip your hat and move on, right? I mean, that's 3 of the best 5 offensive minds in college football, play callers. That's a hell of a road schedule to win all 3 of those. I think Georgia will drop a game in those 3 just because that's 3 really good offensive minds, and you're on the road against all 3 of them. But Georgia has one thing going for them, that offensive line will travel.
That's absolutely it. I see the comment from RJ, will the loss of Robert Thomas make a difference for him? It might. He's a very talented football player, but that wide receiver room coming into the year, especially with the addition of a London Humphreys and the emergence of some of those freshman guys that they brought in this year, I don't think you'll see that much of a drop off for Georgia in that wide receiver department, even after losing Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers, two of their more reliant pieces from a year ago in the passing game. They're looking as talented as Jerry said as ever before on the offense side of the ball, which is crazy to think about, right? I mean,
I think a big part about Georgia this year to follow too is, I don't know if CJ remembers it. I can't remember all the timing of this, but no, it wouldn't have been. So midway through the year last year, I talked to somebody at Georgia, and they're like, they kind of predicted we're not going to win the title this year, and I was like, okay, what's the why? Man, just too many guys on cruise control, won the last 2 titles. Just some of the younger guys don't understand what this is really all about, what it takes. Was last year a good reset for them? I think that's going to be interesting to see because I've always believed the toughest thing in college football, college sports even, but more so in football because it's such big numbers, is after you climb the mountaintop, those next couple of groups of recruits that come in, even if they're highly rated, are they going to play to the process, or they just expect it to happen? I think that's the toughest things. I think that's what made Nick so great outside of the talent and the coaching, was he always had the young guys process. And I think that's the toughest thing to do. So I'm interested to see, does any of the off-field stuff affect Georgia at all? I don't think anybody knows that, but they're very experienced at the right places. They don't have the defensive front they had. Those 2 national title teams, I mean, that was straight dominance, 4 or 5 first-round guys. They don't have that. They have Michael Williams should be a first-rounder, but he's still not as dominant as Trevon Walker was, or Jordan Davis, even though they're a different position, or even Jalen Carter. They're different. Now, Malachi Starks is a stud. They have really good linebackers. Their best edge rush guy, they're actually playing at Jalen Walker, inside linebacker. He's out of North Carolina. If they move him outside, he becomes a Trey Moore, Colin Simmons upside level pass rusher.
Wow. Yeah. That's what kind of that's the luxury of having that kind of talent at Georgia. You can move your best pass rusher to linebacker. Texas actually may have one of their best pass rushers at linebacker too. I say that. Anthony Hill may be one of your best natural pass rushers as well. All right, let's get we got a super chat here, but first we got to thank another one of our fantastic sponsors, and we really appreciate our good friends over at South Point Dodge being part of the On Texas football family, and they've signed up again for football season, so we're really happy about continuing that partnership. So Texas football fans, you can score an easy extra point this season when you get to the point at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge has over 600 vehicles in stock right now, including a great selection of Ram 1500s, 2500s, and 3500s. Whatever your truck needs, South Point Dodge is the one-stop shop. You also can go check out the great deals they have at South Point Dodge. Right now, you can shop over 50 Ram 2500s, all marked down with huge savings today at South Point Dodge. It's Austin's automotive everything. Go check them out today in person. You can go check them out off I-35 in South Austin, or you can go online and look at their expansive inventory at southpointdodge.com. That's southpointdodge.com. Get to the point at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge is Austin's automotive everything. Go check it out today, southpointdodge.com. Thank you very much for sponsoring the Sunday night live stream. All right, we got another super chat. Oh, we got a few super chats here we got to get to. Thank you, guys. Let's hit Longhorn Frenzy first, since we were just talking about Georgia. He says, Georgia, thank you very much, Longhorn Frenzy. Really appreciate your support. Says, Georgia just had a defensive lineman decommit tonight. Would Texas be on his radar? Great job tonight, fellas. Thank you, Longhorn Frenzy. What about that, guys?
Yeah, that was Christian Garrett from Prince Avenue. His official visits were Tennessee, Georgia Tech, Clemson. Look, it's always been close to home for him within that 3-4 hour drive. We'll see. Don't anybody cry for Georgia though. Elijah Griffin, their D-line class will be the best in the country because that state's absolutely loaded at D-line this year. But Christian Garrett in Texas hadn't been any conversations to this point.
Yeah, I did see on Twitter scrolling through that a few predictions went in for Georgia Tech there. So maybe some movement quickly on that front. Georgia Tech winning out some recruitments over Georgia and the defensive line, not something I would have expected in the year.
I think a big thing there is they've beaten Tennessee and Clemson on a couple of guys, which is interesting to me.
They landed Josh Petty, right? The 5-star tackle.
Yeah, or they are. Yeah, I haven't even kept up with that one, but yeah.
Rambling Wreck.
Georgia's got so many D linemen in that state this year, man. I mean, there's a couple of 5-stars sitting out there that'll probably commit to Georgia, and they're going to be fine.
They still drive that Model T on the field before the games.
What?
They still drive like that Model T on the field before games. It's awesome. I love it.
Hey, Jerry, hello guys. Where's Georgia Tech? Where is it at? Where's it located?
In Atlanta.
Okay, that makes sense too. Because we talked about, Jerry, there's no metro area producing NFL talent at the rate that Atlanta is right now. Nowhere in the country. And so they're there in the heart of it.
Not big bodies that can move. Not even close.
They accept that Atlanta identity like SMU's doing for Dallas. Well, you might got something there.
Hey, ooh, that's good. I like.
You need a marketing department. Call me.
Representing the ATL, huh? I like that. All right, getting back to it. Thank you guys for the super chat. Justin Yarbrough, good to see you on the chat, brother. Appreciate you. Appreciate the super chat as well. Says running back is the biggest question mark on the team at the moment. Blue showed some physicality towards the end of the season, but can he do it for 150 plus carries is a big question. Running back by committee will be a must. Thank you very much, Justin, for the super chat. What are your thoughts, CJ? Running back, biggest question mark on the team at the moment. Yeah, it definitely is, of course. I mean, you're moving a linebacker to running back temporarily. So, yes, that is definitely your biggest issue. But are you concerned about Blue and his ability to be durable enough to be a workhorse back?
Maybe not worried about that, but I think the question is, fair, right? Do you even want him to kind of shoulder that many carries? I don't think you do, but at some point he's your best option, and you're going to have to rely on him to do so. He has not had more than 14 touches in a ball game this year or at any point in his career. So when you ask about whether or not he can, kind of take on the burden of that workload, I think it's a fair question. I do think you're going to see him in the conversation, or that kind of mark from 14 to 18 touches a game this year, whether it be carries out of the backfield, receptions, in the passing game as well. It will have to be a Jarrett Gibson, a Trey Wisener, guys that can come in and be productive with their touches, similarly to guys in the basketball world coming off the bench. In those 15 minutes, can they be a plus in the box score? Those running backs will have to find a way to be productive, even if the ball's not in their hands, to just give Jaden Blue that extra time to rest, to decompress a little bit, and make sure that he makes it through the entire season, because we are expecting Texas to play much further into the season than they have in the past.
Yeah, so I think the thing that's interesting with that is a lot of times people bring up Jahmyr Gibbs in the chat. So I always go back to Jahmyr Gibbs' stats. He touched the ball 195 times in 12 games at Alabama his junior year. So what's that, 16.75 or 16 point something? At Georgia Tech, he had 179 touches in 12 games. So I think that 16 and a half, 17 number, I don't think – look, it's also how you use a guy. Texas isn't going to run him inside in between the tackles 15 times a game next year. Not against the schedule they're playing, not against the teams they're playing. Sark doesn't put guys in positions. He tries to put them in the best position to be successful as much as he can. And that's not what they're going to do with Jaden Blue. So I think if he gets that 16, 17 touch a game number, that's probably going to be a good number for him. My thought process on it is I just hope that it's as much out of the backfield as the plan was prior to the Baxter injury.
Yep.
So Jahmyr Gibbs had 44 receptions that year at Alabama. I hope Jaden Blue has 40 receptions next year, because I think if he has 40 receptions, it's going to be for 500 yards.
Ooh, yeah. That's explosive right there. All right. Thank you guys for the super chat. Appreciate that, Justin. Thank you very much. Let's get to Rob's super chat. Thank you very much, Rob. We appreciate the support. He says, what will the team look like after 15 games? How beat up will they be going into game 16, the championship? I love the optimism there, Rob. No doubt. Yeah, you got a plan for success. So that's what Sark's been talking about, though, guys. Honestly, he has, at least in his mind, he is planning on Texas essentially playing to a championship round of the playoffs And yeah, so Sarkis talked about the depth and talked about a lot of guys playing early on in the season, trying to get as many guys to get, valuable reps as possible and manufacturing depth. So I think he's tried to address as much as you can. But how beat up will the team be? Man, it's football. You already got a season-ending injury at first day in pads. Yeah, that's a good chance. And the NFL's the same way, right? With the last 2 years, NFL obviously has been pushed to 17 games. They've had more quarterbacks start the last 2 years they've had in the history of the NFL. Just because you play more games, quarterbacks get hurt. It's just the reality of it, right? More injury.
That's an amazing stat, Rod, because the rules are made to keep the quarterback healthy.
Yeah.
And they still have more injuries than ever because bigger, stronger, faster cannot be defeated by rule changes. No chance.
Yeah, that's great. You're right.
There's no chance. If a guy's 6'4", 300 pounds, and he hits you full speed, there's no rule change that's going to save that guy. Period. It's not going to happen. So all the rule changes are made to keep quarterbacks healthy, but the athletes are getting so big, strong, and fast combination, it's just not going to matter.
But speaking of the NFL, does this go back to now we have, roster limits and not scholarship limits? It basically comes down to roster management, a lot of this too, right? And how you manage the roster and you kind of safeguard yourself against depth issues because they're inevitable, CJ.
Yeah, absolutely will, right? And again, to the point that we're making here, we've heard it all spring, and Sarkisian's not hidden it when talking to the media. He loves the depth on this team at all the key positions. Offensive line, you feel good about the 8 or the 9 guys in that room right now. That probably hasn't been the case in, I don't know, not since I can remember, right? Probably have to go back to when I was in diapers till Texas had those kind of guys that deep on the offensive line. Quarterback, you feel great about that room. Arch Manning, Trey Owens, 2 guys who did great in the spring, have kind of carried that over into the fall as well. The key positions, you have plenty of bodies, defensive line as well. The edge room, we've talked about Colin Simmons and Colton Vasek, guys that, would probably play in years past this early in their careers, now fighting for reps with the third and second teams. It's impressive at all the key spots. Maybe you look at cornerback, maybe you look at linebacker and say maybe the true number of bodies aren't there, but you do have guys that Texas feels very confident about becoming players down the road, right? Ty Anthony Smith, Santana Wilson, Wardell Mack in that nickel spot. So we'll see. But for playing the longer season that they hope to play, at the very least, that the depth at those key spots will be there, even with some of those big, injuries that will occur. Because again, football is a violent sport, and you will see more injuries pop up throughout the year. It's just an unfortunate part of the game, but this year, probably more so than ever, they're more suited to overcome some of those hiccups that you'll see throughout, week 8 to 10 to 12 and beyond.
Yep. Got to play more guys, and you better love the guys who are rotating in and your backups because there's a good chance, knock on wood, that they're going to have to give you a start or some quality reps during the season.
Cam Williams last year.
Hey, let's talk about running back. We talked about it, but look, somebody's going to get nicked up this year. Either Blue or Wisner. You hope it doesn't happen, but it's inevitable. It's a physical game. These guys are going to touch the ball 12, 15 times in games. They're going to get nicked up. Texas had 2 running backs injured last year throughout the season. So that the playing this depth is so key for Steve Sarkisian. Everybody, one of our questions is Texas going to take 2 running backs every class? Absolutely. It's a physical sport. I mean, Sark wants to run it. Y'all know the rates, 52.5% run, 47.5 pass over his career.
Pretty even.
And he wants to do that in the SEC. So your depth and playing that depth is more important than ever. So if Jaden Blue, if Trey Wisner maybe don't have as many touches in a UTSA and a ULM games, that's all part of the plan.
Yeah. No, I like it. All right. Before we get back to some more of the questions, and we will because we got another super chat here from Kyle. I want to send my man Jared to tell you about our good friends at Duck Camp. Before we do that, I'm going to tell you why you need to join our On Texas Football family. Now it's a great time to join the exclusive Longhorn community at ontexasfootball.com. Become an OTFOG. That's right, folks. You can talk with us each and every day, get your questions answered. Plus, there's even more news and commentary. You can join us over at ontexasfootball.com. And right now, it's the perfect time to do it. They're running that special. And right now, you can get $20 off an annual subscription to the site if you use the code OTFOG. So join the On Texas family. So appreciate you guys for helping us build this community, but you can continue to be an OTFOG and get even better news, notes, and nuggets from the team here, Jerry Hamilton, Bobby Burton, CJ Vogel, and the crew. All right, thank you very much for that. Let's get to my man Jerry Hamilton. He'll tell you about our friends over at Duck Camp.
Yeah, my new favorite hat. I know UT boys wearing some Duck Camp out there at Emerald Bay, throwing the line in the water. He has to be. Duck gear is made for people that live in the moments out there, whether they're fish to catch, birds to hunt, time to kill, football to watch. They like doing all that stuff. So they built a company centered on it, based in Austin, and dedicated to giving people best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel. Duck Camp gear has been tested from the backcountry of Alaska to the dove fields of Texas. Also ready to keep you cool and comfortable on those scorcher game days and DKR. It will stand up to the toughest conditions, but also happily sit down beside the fire and drink a few cold ones if that's more your speed. New sun protection shirts that keep you cool, dry, and comfy, available in camos and solid colorways now available. New items at duckcamp.com. Mallard hat and pointer hat in the clay colorway, pretty much our cherished burnt orange color. Here's to a great season, y'all. Yes, hunting and football. Shop hunting gear at duckcamp.com.
Yep, just did me some shopping at duckcamp.com. So I'm excited about my gear coming in. Should be coming in late next week sometime, somewhere like that. So it'll be really fun. Be ready for football season. So thank you, Jerry, for that. Let's get to Kyle here with the super chat. Thank you very much, Kyle. We appreciate your support. Kyle says, are we going to see improvement this year in the red zone, considering it was a problem all last season and essentially ended our season? Yeah, your two losses last season, unfortunately, red zone were two areas of concern in both of those matchups, Oklahoma and against Washington. What I thought was intriguing, guys, that when Sark, he wasn't asked about it a lot in the offseason. I think people had, maybe he had grown tired of hearing about it and people are growing tired of asking about it. But he never really figured it out. That usually coaches, they're troubleshooting throughout the season, and you'll see them come up with a remedy for an issue. It's like, this is their plan. Sark never really found the answer to their red zone issues. And when I heard him talk about it in the offseason, my theory was always, man, it's just he hasn't really came up with a game plan or an identity in the red zone post Bijan and Rojo. That was my saying. You guys have heard me say it over and over again. And essentially, Sark said, number one, that was their big issue. He said, man, honestly, it's hard without Bijan and Rojo. I'm paraphrasing. He said, it's really hard without those guys. Those guys were amazing. And I think it was too easy for him. He had those two cheat codes. Basically, it was an open book test every time he was in the red zone. It was like, give it to Bijan, put some Bijan on it with a side of Rojo. So he said the hangover of post Bijan and Rojo was also a part of it. And he admitted him as a play caller that he was very inconsistent as a play caller and he never really narrowed it down to a specific identity or strength in the red zone for his team. And so he didn't really talk about a remedy because I don't think he wants to give that away. He didn't talk about how he solved the problem in the offseason, but he admitted that he looked deep enough into it and found that the reason was pretty much him. Like he's the man in the mirror is who he's blaming for the red zone issues. I don't disagree with that. I also think he's the answer. You're the problem, Sark, but you are also the answer to the red zone issues. Because I think once they find an identity in the red zone, which I think is something that he probably was struggling with this offseason and probably went deep down a rabbit hole to find this offseason. I think it's something that they'll be much better at this offseason. They can't be worse, by the way. They're 120th in touchdown.
Right.
It can't be worse.
I want to put two things out there as well to add to that. This is a grown-up, experienced offensive line. This should be a year that you see improvement with those guys in the red zone, owning the line of scrimmage, even though it's tough. And then this is Quinn's third year starting as a quarterback. This should be his best red zone season that he's had at Texas. If those two things happen, that makes Sark's job a lot easier. Mm-hmm. If Texas can't move people in the run game, in the red zone, then Sark's got a tougher task on his hand. This offensive line, these guys are all grown up now, man. I mean, this is a year for them to start imposing their will on some people as well. So I know Sark he puts a lot on his plate with it, but this experienced offensive line, this experienced quarterback, if those guys play well, that helps Sark a lot.
Yeah, good stuff there. All right, a couple more questions. I know we're getting close to the end of the live stream here, so we appreciate you guys sticking with us. A couple of recruiting questions I think we're getting to here. This is from Tracy Jackson 23. He said, is it a concern if Texas misses on Fasusi, or do we think Gooseby is that good?
I think I'm not sure it's Gooseby necessarily and the guys on campus. I think it's more Turntine in 2026. I think is kind of the way I look at that. So Fasusi, I think, look, there's a reason he likes Oklahoma. His best friend's going there's a preferred walk-on. But the opportunity in his mind to go and start there potentially is a big thing. Now, is that realistic? Only time will tell. He's only been playing football. This will be his third year now. So hasn't been playing football his whole life. So he's got some football IQ parts to continue to learn and develop in his game. But I look more behind it, right? 2026 with John Turntine. Texas is in a good position with Turntine. Does that help you even more? Now I'm not saying Turntine's for sure left tackle. He may be right. We'll see. But I think it factors more into 26s with me than it does current guys on campus.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's twofold there. If you miss out on Fasusi this year, well, where's he ending up? And it's that team above the North, the Red River, right? You know, it's Oklahoma. You're going to have to play him for 3 or 4 years, which is unfortunate if that's the case. But that's what else adds to the importance of that recruitment is you want him on your side, right? That's a 5-star offensive tackle from the DFW area. His name holds a little bit of weight there. You'd like to continue to have that momentum and that dominance in the DFW area there as well. I see some questions about Nick Brooks as well. Is he a right tackle? Is he a guard? Is he a left tackle? I think we all agree, right? You know, it's Fasusi as the left guard on paper right now. Nick Brooks would be more of that right tackle kind of option at the moment, I would say, in this class.
Yeah, I think Brooks, if he ends up at Texas, and John Mills and Jordan Coleman, maybe not Coleman as much, or those two guys are more. They have the feet, they have the length to play tackle. Is the body quickness or the things they're going to have to carry over in pass pro? Is that going to happen? I would think one of those guys may stick at a tackle spot. By the way, Brian Nelson said Brandon Baker's a future stud. Heard very good things about Brandon Baker at Texas so far. Now, we may not see it on the field much this year, but heard some very good things about Brandon Baker. Some people have been asking about Ty Anthony Smith. Heard some really good things about Ty Anthony Smith. He continues to impress. The one thing I'll say about Ty Anthony, Rod, is, you know, Jasper played him at linebacker. They played him at edge. He played running back. He played Wildcat quarterback. He played receiver. That guy has a football intelligence about him, right? I don't care if you're a small school guy or not. If they can put you all over the place like that in one season, they trust you to not mess it up. So you have to have some football intelligence about you. So I think some things are going to translate with Ty Anthony Smith as he continues to put that muscle on his frame, or that armor, as Rod calls it. But he's got the instincts. He's got the football intelligence. And he's got a 79.5-inch wingspan at 6'1.5", which doesn't hurt.
That don't hurt at all. Not at all. Sam Balesa, this might be our last question of the day here. Have we heard anything about Hill and Benda in coverage? I remember the panic on these live streams last year about defending crossing routes and passing off receivers in the middle of the field. Anthony Hill, and I've heard CJ you talk about this. Anthony Hill looks pretty comfortable in space, dropping back in coverage. He really does. It's just going to take him some more time. I mean, he got used to the speed of the game pretty quickly as a freshman. Benda would be the concern in coverage, but as a veteran at this point, after playing a lot last year, you would think that Benda would now at least be a little bit more capable as a defender in coverage. The real concern is going to be when they decide to target him with crossing routes and with inside breaking routes when he's dropping back in coverage. But I think Anthony Hill's fine. Benda would be the concern there. You guys think anything different?
No, I'm there 100%. You look back at the Kansas game, they targeted him and through the air, and they had some success there, right? They had a few, early successful, explosive plays there through the air. It was whenever they were going at the Texas linebacker, specifically David Benda. I know they had that kind of fluke option play with the fumble, which was recovered and just kind of waltzed in the end zone. That was a fluke, but when they wanted to have success and when they did have success, it was through the air going at David Benda. The big thing for me with Benda is that experience in the passing game, right? When he was on the field a year ago, more times than not, he was, playing downhill, playing the run. He was coming after the quarterback. You didn't see him drop back into coverage all too often. Now that he's, quote unquote, the guy with Anthony Hill in the middle of that field, all of spring ball has been focused on, all right, where are your eyes? Where are you reading the quarterbacks? What's your keys from 3 to 2 to 1? How are you going about your zone? Now in the fall, you're piecing that together with the run fits, playing alongside the guy making the calls. How are y'all playing, again, the passing zones, in which was a bit of an issue. I don't want to say he got, tunnel vision at times in the passing game, but there were times where, those underneath crossing routes weren't picked up on, or he just maybe didn't see him at times. And I think that's where that lack of experience in true passing situations kind of came into play. So I wouldn't say I'm concerned right now. I've not heard anything about that being a glaring weakness with the Texas defense. If anything, that athleticism paired up with Hill will be something that Texas will be able to build off of this fall.
Yep.
I would say Leonga Lafau is going to be stronger in coverage.
Yep.
These guys have different strength. Leonga Lafau's had a really good fall camp too, by the way.
Yeah. And we know Mo Blackwell's obviously his strength would be in coverage too, switching from safety and being a hybrid guy. So they do have the versatility, I think, is what gives them possible solutions to any of these problems that are going to be presented. All right. Thank you guys for all the questions and the super chats. Hope we answer. We have as many as we can. I'm sorry we didn't get to all of them. So please come back tomorrow. We'll have coffee and football in the morning with Jerry Hamilton and Bobby Bird. They'll start at 8 a.m. Also, tomorrow we'll have the winning drive. My man CJ Vogel and myself and Coach Bob Shipley. That'll be around 3. All right, 3 o'clock. We'll start up the winning drive. So we'll answer as many of your questions there. So if you got more of the questions we didn't get to, please throw them out. I want to thank my man Matthew behind the scenes, because he's always the real MVP of this thing. Thank all of our sponsors. Thank Duck Camp. We appreciate them. Thank you to South Point Dodge, and thank you to Flat Creek Estate Winery. We really appreciate them being part of the Orange Texas football family. Until next time, same channel. Hook 'em horns.